everyone. Okay, so still getting stuff set up, so I'm giving everybody a few minutes to get in. You have questions, go ahead and ask. Yay, computer work. I am really surprised at how many people I have I'm really surprised at all of the pictures I've been seeing in all the groups of everybody's socks. A lot of you have really taken the initiative and went through, watched other videos, figured out your own way, and done a pair yourself, and then you're back to do these. 10 people already. Hi, everybody. All right, I gotta see if I can catch this on my computer so I can figure out what the delay is here. Sorry, you guys got to be patient with me. That's why I get on here early. Anybody checking us out? All right, I am on here about 10 minutes early. So if you want, during the replay, just fast forward through this first 10 minutes. Everything ready, talking to people, answering questions and stuff. And then we're going to get started. My computer's just being a little... There we go. There I am. My computer's being a little... frustrating. Maybe I am, maybe I'm not. Where am I? Yes. I got my send you a link. All right. I got my other half in here, and he is the one who actually takes Sharon Messenger. He checks through the comments and stuff, so I don't have to keep stopping and where are you at, Jeremy? Jeremy. There he is. Anyway, he is the one who will read a lot of the comments and stuff, so I'm not sitting here going like this through the whole video. That way I can kind of concentrate more on looking at the project and seeing what I'm doing. Alright, so we are down to just a little less than 10 minutes. Now, turn off the volume on that. Yay, there! Now I can see you guys. Awesome! Which I'll look through on this first half some. I just didn't want to be pausing, looking. I really want to try to get this class done today in enough time for all my football fans out there. I'm not one of you. Sorry. I honestly didn't even know it was a Super Bowl weekend until like 2 days ago. I'm one of those women who has a guy who's not into sports. I know. I'm lucky. So lucky. Alright. I do want to show you guys a few different little cute things I did. I think it's cute. A lot of you might be clumsy. Like me. I'm kind of clumsy. So what I did was I actually went to my Dollar Tree. I was looking for fabric paint. Dollar Tree, they didn't have any. What they did have, check these out. They're glue sticks for hot glue guns, and they're all glittery and cute, and I love them. So I bought some, and I've been playing around with, I've always used the fabric paint that is washable and everything to do stuff on the bottom of my socks so that they're non-skid. So this one, it's kind of hard to see, and I put it on my foot before they were completely dry, so I got some smashed out ones. But we got little glitter glue pellets. I really wanted to get the glow in the dark, so that's what I'm going to do next time. Now this one, I'm making for somebody else. I did hearts. Things to do and not to do. See how these ones are nice and cute and so thin? That's what you want. You don't want this or this, because see if you guys see it. It's pretty chunky. That was the old collar coming through, and for some reason it melted differently than the purple glittery did. But with these little flat ones like this, that is perfect. Gives you a little bit of grip on the bottom of your feet. Let me see. Sorry. Took a pause, trying not to. Reading through some of the comments. trying to keep track of time too here so that I can kind of get started right on time for everybody. So who all has big plans and are going to, what's everybody doing for the Super Bowl party? People having parties, people just going to sit around and knit. That's what I'm going to do. Anybody do big dinners? I know my mom has, they have people over and stuff, and I know a lot of people do little Super Bowl parties. Not me so much. What else we got here? Susan, you just started your sock? Awesome, I'm glad you started. Yay. Yes, Elaine, this is the February class, the second class. You'll be doing your heel, the body of the sock, and the cast off. I was thinking timing with Super Bowl and everything, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be cooking, getting things ready, so I'm just going to do that part. I'm not going to get into like the fun little add-ons. I was actually going to do, I'll go ahead and get on next Sunday, same time, and answer just questions for people who have maybe missed the previous live classes, or just troubleshooting issues you've come up with. I'll go over, you know, the little glue dot thing again, and I'll show you how to make the pom-poms. I can't find my loose set. I don't know what I've done with it. It's just an interesting tool. Show you guys how to use that. I may end up having to go to Hobby Lobby. It gives me an excuse to get another one. What else was I want to go over? Show you how to make little tiny pom-poms to put on the ends of the strings if you want, because that's kind of cute. I have a list of little fun add-ons you guys can do. Sorry, I'm trying to check out some of these questions. I'm missing a lot of these guys. So hi everybody. Ooh. It's funny, it's hard to keep up with the comments because like I read one comment and another one pops up, which is actually really awesome. Okay, so Tracy is going to watch me and knit while hubby watches Super Bowl. Awesome. I figured there might be a lot of that. I'm just learning. Oh, you're just... Okay, so Emily's just learning. That's fantastic, Emily. I'm going to try to do some more live videos to where I can kind of be here face to face to help people with questions, problems, and stuff like that. Cindy's going to knit, then go to bed early. Lucky, lucky Cindy. I'm going to do the class, and then I will get it uploaded to YouTube. And then, at that point, it's time to make sure the kids are all bathed, appropriately ready for bed. And then I'll probably lay in bed for a few hours and watch some TV. That's kind of my calm down time after the kids go to bed. I get to sit. Anybody else have like the happiest time of the day for you? This is gonna sound horrible. Just sitting in bed at night, watching some TV with your husband and just knitting? Because I kind of look forward to that. Don't tell the kids. But after like 9 o'clock, we play HQ every night religiously. I can't remember what my screen name is for HQ. Oh crap, what is my screen name for HQ? I think it's Eat, Knit, Sleep, something like that. We play HQ, and then we watch whatever show we're on. We're on October Faction. I think that's what it's called. It's on Netflix. So if you've seen all of it, don't tell me anything. We've got, I think, 3 or 4 episodes left, and I really like it. Will I have my class posted on Facebook? Yes, I will. The class, as soon as the video is done, I automatically choose for it to stay posted, and I download it so then I can edit it and upload it to YouTube. So if you do want to be able to watch it directly as soon as it's done, it will be on Facebook. That's not going to leave. But it will be uploaded to YouTube, and here in the next week, I'm going to be going through doing editing, because all of these socks, every single one, because I'm working with 6 different socks at one time, for this class. So every single one of these, I've actually been doing individual videos for them. A lot of people don't really realize that different looms show you. A lot of people don't realize that this loom and this loom, I can make the exact same thing. They're different colors, they're from a different company. So a lot of people, it's easier. You want to see the color loom you have and do exactly what your loom, do exactly what it says for your loom. All right, we got a couple minutes. After socks, what will I be teaching next? Tracy, I am not sure. I'm really not sure. I got a lot of ideas, but I also have so many projects I'm trying to complete. I have what's called, we'll just say ADD. I like to play around, kind of come up with patterns in my head, take little notes, and then try to play with it and figure it out, and then go back through, write it all up, and video it. Unfortunately, follow through on that second half isn't as good as I want it to be. So this year I'm going to be working on that, and I'm going to be doing a huge series of rake stitches. I've done one a long time ago, and I did this huge, I called it my ugly scarf, and it had, I want to say 25 different rake stitches, double knitting, nothing to do with what we're doing here, nothing, completely different loom and everything. But I will be doing like a weekly class on that. It'll just be YouTube videos that post. It's not going to be live. But as far as live videos, I'm not sure. I just know that socks were really, really, really intimidating for me. It took me a long time to start with them. And after Christmas, a lot of people got knitting looms. And if you're like me, you're like, okay, E-wrap. Yes, I love this. It's fast. Let's keep going. And then you stop because you're scared of these other stitches. Maybe the directions in your booklets or in your packets are a little confusing. So you just kind of sit back and keep working with what you're comfortable with. Socks are very intimidating for a lot of people, and because you got to make it, it's got to fit, and you have to have two that match. So that's really why I wanted to start with socks. So from here, I'm not sure. I just thought this was really good for beginners. I made it as simplified as I could, just house socks, no confusing toes, no Kitchener, nothing like that. If a lot of you are brave, and I don't want to say brave, let's say a word better than brave. If you guys are ambitious enough and want to try regular socks, we can always do that next. I'm just going to kind of leave it up and see what I get a lot of requests for. Okay, what are a couple of these? Zaza, you're here! Yay, you made it! Okay. Ooh, okay, it's 5 o'clock, everybody. So, alright guys, this is our second live class for the beginner sock loom along. This is the loom we're using for the class. Now, last week, what we did was we just worked the cuff and then the rows here, and we did our string. A lot of you guys worked along, and it was awesome because I was seeing photos posted online before I was even done with the video. That was so cool. You guys did really, really good, and there's been a lot of talk, a lot of people interacting, and I love that. But what we're going to be doing this week, we are going to be doing the heel, the body, and then your toe. I will work the heel completely with you, show you how to do the body, show you how to do the measuring, and then I will work the toe. That way, to work the whole body is going to take a while. You're using the exact same stitch. You can come back and watch the end part of the video later if you need more help with the toe. But I tried to do something that was not very difficult and something that a lot of people can do, and it's actually a really, really good bind off for a hat as well. It's time to get started, guys. Got your loom. I'm going to set this up in my little light box. Get my loom tool. And I got to move my camera, guys, so it's going to be a little messy for a moment. Let me see. How do I switch it? I got to figure out how to work my camera first. Oh, my buttons are at the bottom now. Camera's switching around. I'm just covering that up so I'm not making everybody dizzy trying to move this. And I gotta check this for a minute, just make sure I have this angled right to where I can see it good. And scoot up. So if you didn't work ahead, and you are where I am, then you should be back here at your first peg. You got peg 1 and peg 12 marked. This is the front of the loom. This is the back of the loom. This is where we will be working our heel. Whatever stitch you're using for the body and everything else, that's what you're going to be using. We are going to switch just right before and after the heel. We are going to use a flat stitch. That's going to help with the holes, because I know that heel holes are a big concern for a lot of people, and it can be a very frustrating thing, because it can be very discouraging. But if I don't get to it this week, next week, I'm going to try to really explain some of this more if I'm not clear enough today. But see, the heel I'm doing, there's not much of a hole here at all, but all it is it's tension, because if you look, you're going straight here, and then this heel is a wedge, and then everything's going to go straight. So right where that heel is, you get a curve in it, and so you got everything. You got it pulling this way, and this way from this one spot. So you want your tension to be tighter in that spot. Now, okay guys, you ready? We are, where am I at? Okay, sorry. I'm used to my starting peg, and I don't have a starting peg on this one. Okay, peg 1. For our heel, we are going to be doing what is called a wrap and turn, which means you wrap around the front of the peg, and we will turn and work in the opposite direction. This is what we call the decrease, our wrap and turn. So you wrap around the front of your first peg, go back. Now instead, if you're doing E-wrap, instead of going into your E-wrap, or if you're doing U-stitch instead of going into your U-stitch, what you want to do is go directly into the flat stitch, which you can do that and you kind of tighten that up. And then you can go to whatever your other stitch is. That is your first decrease. Now what we will be doing is we are going to be decreasing each side. And all that means is I'll work to this next side and then I'll show you. Okay. Right here, instead of doing another U-stitch, I'm going to do a flat stitch. Wrap around. This is peg 12. Wrap around, come back, and do another flat stitch. I want to tighten it a bit. Don't tighten it too much to where you're not going to be able to knit off when we come back to this. Now we will work back to this other side. So work all the way back. So how many of you already went ahead and made an entire pair and are now working on your second pair? I saw one person who had already made 3 pair and then was coming in for the live video to start a new one. Okay, as you can see, this was my first decrease right here. This was peg 1. This is peg 24, all the way around the other side loom. Flat stitch. This one's already done the wrap and turn, so we're going to wrap and turn this one. and then do another flat stitch. I'm going to take a minute and talk about the decreasing for the heel. You guys can keep working back and forth as I do this. Well, I'll go ahead and work to the other side and then I'll talk about it. I'll show you one more wrap and turn, and then I will kind of discuss how far in you want to go and why. Almost over there. Okay, so here's peg 12, that first wrap and turn. Here's peg 13 and peg 14. Peg 14, we will flat stitch. Peg 13, we're going to wrap around the front and then turn to go in the back in the opposite direction and knit that off. Tighten it up just a little bit. So as I said, this is the front of our loom. This is the back of our loom. We want to make sure we decrease and increase the same amount on both sides. But how you determine the size of the heel, most of the time what you need to do is you take the number of pegs, divide it by 3. So we got 12 pegs here, so we go it's 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and we have 4 open ones. I start 1 peg up, so we will actually be doing 5. There'll be 4 open in the middle, and we'll be going back up. And I somehow have lost my stitch markers, so you guys keep working. I'm going to mark these pegs real quick, because as I did last week, peg 1, peg 6 and 7 marked, peg 12, and then 16. So 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. That's 5 pegs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Or if you have a stitch marker break or anything, this is how you can fix it. And then there's going to be 4 empty ones. Guys, I'm honestly just grabbing the first thing I'm seeing right now to mark these. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to mark that. There we go. All right. Okay, all right. I'll slow down what I'm doing. Sorry if I'm going too fast, guys. Okay. So, I'm going to slow down a little bit and work back, because we're going to be decreasing. That's that wrap and turn. So we wrap and turn peg 1, then peg 12. We came back and done peg 24, peg 13, peg 23, peg 14, and we're going to keep doing this back and forth. But I will continue and work the entire heel with you guys. Questions, go ahead and ask. My other half's over here eating some delicious smelling soup and reading the questions. There is a bit of a delay, so it may take me a few moments to get to the question. I'm back over here. Here's peg 1, peg 24, peg 23, peg 22, flat stitch. See, that's already got 2 stitches. That's a wrap turn. That's a wrap and turn. We're going to wrap around the front and the back to go in the opposite direction. And then I'm going to tighten that up just a little bit. You guys will see here in a little bit what happens when I wrap these too tight, probably. Who all has issues with their tension? I know I have a lot of issues with tension. I'm back over here, so here's peg 12. I already worked. Peg 13, I have already worked. Here's peg 14, 15. Flat stitch. Wrap around the front, turn to go in the opposite direction. Knit off, tighten that up a little bit. Okay, I missed the first 10 minutes. We'll watch, but not working on my slipper until... Oh, hold on. Are we still going all the way around? How do we decrease and still do peg 13? I'm really confused. Oh, I'm so sorry, Jan. No. Right now, all we are doing is this back side. We're going back and forth. That is it for our decrease. And then we'll do that for the increase as well. And then we will start working in the round. So here's peg 12, peg 13, and peg 14. I'm working back in this direction again. If you want to knit a little tighter for the heel area, that is perfectly fine. The heel and the toe are some of the first areas. Oh, sorry guys. The heel and toe are some of the first areas to start to give in a sock. So peg 1, 24, 23. We are at peg 22. Flat stitch. Oops. See, that one was already pretty tight. Peg 21, and then we are going to wrap around the front and the back. Peg 22. And there. I gotta pull me some more yarn here. I stitch back. And here we are over here. So peg 12, 13, 14 are already done. Peg 15. Wrap around the front of peg 14 and then the back, going back. You want to do that flat stitch, tighten it up some. The heel, once you get going with the heel, as long as you don't stop and forget where you're at in the heel, it actually goes fairly quick. Oh, here I am. So peg 1, back 24, 23, 22. Here's peg 21. I'm going to wrap around the front, turn to go in the opposite direction, kind of tighten that up, and then go over here. And here we are at peg 16. This is our last decrease. Wrap around the front, turn to go in the opposite direction. Again, tighten that up some. I'm going to show you guys a couple examples what it looks like when your decrease is done. So, peg 1, peg 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 21, 22, 23, and 24 will all now have 2 stitches on them. This is what it looks like at this point. If you're using an E-wrap stitch, this is what it kind of looks like on my Cindywood loom. Someone asked what size loom. I'm using a 5/8 gauge 24 peg loom. There are, in the first video, I really go over looms and stuff a lot more, but that's just what I am using. Oh, sorry guys. I set my stitch markers out of my reach. Okay. So this, kind of letting it go for a few minutes and talk while everybody kind of catches up. So starting on peg 1, I knit all the way around to peg 24, then start the wrap and turn at 24 back to 12. That was from Brenda. Actually, at peg 1, for this first part, if you are up to the part where we are starting our heel, your yarn should be on peg 24 at the end of that last round, right here. At that point, then you will wrap and turn peg 1, and then move all the way then you will then you will, whatever stitch you're using, whether you're using the E-wrap or your U-stitch, all the way back to page 12. And then we are going back and forth until you get 5 on both sides with double stitches. Oh, Oliver, you had hard time finding it. I'm sorry. Okay, so are you guys ready for me to start on your increase yet? Or do you have some more questions or anything else you'd like for me to go over first? I'm going to give you guys a couple minutes just to make sure. But as you can see, I will show differences in yarn. This yarn and this yarn, this one's a 5, this is a 6. And so I used an E-wrap for this one and a U-stitch for this one. Both of these have the exact same number of rows and everything. But look at how big this section is for the heel as opposed to this. So if yours doesn't look exactly like mine right here, because I do knit tight, that's something I've always done. Okay, what you said is exactly what I was missing. Now I have to catch up. Oh, good. I'm so glad I was able to explain it for you, Jan. Yeah, start working if you got your stuff and try to catch up. I'm going to try to give people a few minutes to try to get to where I'm at. So if you do have questions when you're doing your increase, that I can stop and kind of go over that with you. Because once your heel is done, this is what's going to look like after your heel is done, the next step. Got kicked off once? Oh man, sorry Donna. I am so bad at the live videos of taking and accidentally hitting the back button and backing myself out of it completely. Absolutely completely. Now, one thing when we are counting and everything, because I'm going to do the heel, I don't want to stress anybody out. We are not, you guys do not have to gauge for this. So, but I am going to go over gauging options, because sometimes we want to make socks for people and we don't really know what size foot they have. But I'm just going to show you guys this. I've already done my decreases. I haven't started anything else. One thing I wanted to do was, you can see where I marked where I did my brim or the cuff, however you want to call it. I'm going to take a stitch marker right here on the front side of the sock and mark that stitch. Let me take and I'm going to flip the finished one inside out so you can see why I am doing this. Okay, so here's the sock when it is done and washed, flipped inside out. Right here is that stitch. But this stitch right here is actually right here. I had ran out and took that one to move it down. But what that does is that tells me, okay, this is that last row before my heel. So all of this is considered the body. And I mark every 10 rows so I count. So I can keep count easily. And I leave the stitch markers in until I'm done with the second sock. The reason being, I am very, very good at sitting a project down to come back to it at a later point, knowing that I'm going to remember everything that I've done. And then finding out that I don't remember anything I've done, and I gotta just wing it and hopefully get 2 socks to match. But as you can see, this one said been 10, 20, 30, 40 rows, and I know my counting, I did 5 extra, so this one would have been 45 rows. So I'll set that over. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get going on our increase. Which again, if I am going too slow, okay, hold on. I seen a question. Tracy, a bit confusing. I have never done a heel and decrease, so I just going to watch now and do mine after. Okay, that's fine. Not ready. Please do another wrap and turn, decrease, heel. Okay, yes, I will do another wrap and turn. Actually, I will undo a couple stitches and then I will show it to you again. Okay. I'm in a little light box here and I'm getting used to my confined area, so I'm so sorry guys, I'm hitting the sides of it. Alright, wrap and turn. I go over the front of the peg and I wrap around the back. The turn part just means you're working in the opposite direction. I came working in this direction, so I knit this one, this one, this one, this one, and then this one. So I'm going to wrap it, turn backwards, and then work in that opposite direction. Remember, try to keep your tension a little tighter on that stitch right before and after your wrap and turn. That will help with heel holes. I know that's one of the biggest fears of so many people are those heel holes. Here we go. I will get into sizing here after I get the heel done. Okay. So, there we go. 5 and 5. The increase, guys, is not difficult. I'm going to start. You're still doing the exact same thing. You're going to wrap. I just did this as my last decrease. And I'm still going back in that opposite direction as I did with the wrap and turn. See, that one's very tight. I'm sure you guys can hear that. Here is my first decrease on the opposite side. This is peg 16. Sorry, guys. This is peg 21. I'm sorry. To do this, I'm going to wrap. Now, these are going to be pretty tight. See? So, instead of taking them both over at the same time, I'm going to grab them one at a time and knit them off. So, I put my working yarn over and knit off both loops. And I do want to kind of pull that a little tight, even though it was very tight to begin with. And then you can count that as your kind of as a wrap and turn. That is called an increase. We wrap and turn. We knit back to the other side. Again, I want my tension a little tighter on the one before. This is peg 16. That is the last decrease on this side. Again, I'm doing the same thing. Working yarn over top the peg. I'm picking up one stitch, pick up that second stitch, tighten it a bit, work back. Now, working back in between, I'm going to work a little faster just for timing. But I'm going to try to slow down when I'm doing the increases. But as you can see, we increased this one, which meant we took both those over. So that one's just a normal stitch now. It's the one right before our next double stitch on peg. Again, hold the working yarn over. Grab one loop over, grab that second loop over. You can tighten it up a little bit if you need to. Work back to the second on the other side. Peg 16, that was that first one we already worked. Now we're going to do peg 15. Take that first stitch over. Take that second stitch over. Okay, while I am working this back and forth, you work this back and forth, stop when you get to your marked pegs, peg 1 and peg 12. So stop at those, okay? And I'm going to go ahead and work to those points while you guys ask questions and such, because I'm trying to go slow and take my time, But I know a lot of you are going to be watching Super Bowl here after a while. Okay. So, peg 1, we got peg 24. I'm at peg 23. Bottom over the top. Bottom over the top. Work in opposite direction. Yeah, the squeaky sound, I'm sorry. I can't really help that. I've noticed that acrylic yarn, I get the squeaks on my loom a lot more with the acrylic. Okay, I'm back this way, so peg 12, 13, 14 is my next increase. See, there's 2 left on this side. I'm going to work back. Let me check, see if, okay, will you, the video will be available as a replay. As soon as this video is over, you can replay it. Actually, I'm not sure if you're able to, I don't know how live videos work while they're playing. I don't think you can replay it while it's still live. I'm not 100% sure, but there will be a replay available that shows everybody's questions and comments and all that. Then there will be an uploaded version to YouTube that kind of skips over all of that. Okay, so here's peg 1, peg 24. I'm going to go ahead and do peg 24. Work back the opposite direction. One thing I will say, if you have a really wide heel or a very narrow heel, yeah, pay attention and don't just like knit stitches off. That's what happens when I try to talk and knit. If you have a very narrow heel or a very wide heel, you can adjust your increases and decreases. But I have found that if you take 1/3 of the heel size, which for 12 is 4, 4, and 4, that seems to work for most people. I really haven't came across an issue where it didn't. So here's peg 12, peg 13. And peg 1 and 12 are actually, if we break this apart, there are 12 pegs on this side, 12 pegs on this side. I explained this earlier, but just in case for newcomers, they're going to be like, well, you increase and decrease 5 on each side. This is the 12. I actually do my heel 1 stitch on both sides past the actual half of the loom. I like the way that looks better. It gives the heel, it makes the heel just a little bigger. So that is why there is 5, then 4 empty, then 5. Let me check comments real quick. Yes, there will be written pattern. Everything will be written out. I'm sorry, guys. Everything will be written out. There will be video links. Everything's going to be broke down in the PDF. It will be free, of course. Trying to think of anything else. There will be a PDF. I'm working on like 6 different socks at the same time. I'm trying to do something a little different with each one. And sorry guys, I'm getting distracted. I'm so sorry. There's going to be 5 to 6 videos, sock videos coming out with the PDF and everything. And they're basically going to be the same video. There's going to be something like mildly different in every single one. And they're going to be on different looms using different yarn. Okay. I'm going to pause for a minute before I go on because I now have increased to peg 24. peg 1 and peg 12 are the only ones left with 2 loops on them. Before we go from here, now is where I'm going to discuss gauging some, which I didn't start you guys out gauging just because it is a very intimidating thing for people who are newer to loom knitting. So this pattern, most yarn you're using, your gauging isn't going to change, because actually every single sock I've made for this pattern so far, I washed them all, I measured them first, then I washed them, then I measured them again to see what the difference is. The reason you want to wash, then measure, is because when the fiber is put into water, it's going to relax. And as they relax, it's going to change, it could change the sizing some. With this, I honestly didn't get enough of a change to really make a huge difference. And the yarn, I've got some that's woolies. Everything else I'm using is just pure acrylic. But for future socks, if you want to gauge and figure out the size, you want to make a swatch. This is a swatch. You use any cast on you want, any cast off you want. You want to make sure you're using the loom that you're wanting to work with. So, let me find my ruler. You want to make sure you're using the loom that the yarn in the loom that you want to work with, and work up. You want to try to work up a piece that's about 4 inches wide. This one was like 2. You can do it with 2, but if you do it 4 inches, you can get a more accurate gauging. Because what you need to find out is each one of these rows right here, that's a stitch. Those little V shapes. Those little V's. So that's one peg, that's another peg, that's another peg as it's working down. Hope that makes sense. 1, 2, 3. So you need to know how many pegs the loom needs to have to fit your foot to make a sock. With this, there's going to be stretch. I've had very, very few instances that socks made on the 5/8 gauge 24 peg loom was not big enough for someone's foot. But how we measure this? So we want to know, okay, how many pegs does this loom need to have for me? So if you look, you can see there's a V, there's a V, there's one, there's one. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So for this yarn, every 6 pegs is 2 inches. So that means every 3 pegs is 1 inch on this loom. I measure around the body part of my foot, which for me is 8 inches. And then I got my cheat sheet because my words get confused in my head. So, to find out how many pegs we need for the loom, you want to get the circumference of your foot and times your pegs per inch. What that means is my foot's 8 inches around, so I multiply 8 by 3. And then that gives me an idea of how many pegs the loom should have. It can be off. That's okay, because as you can see, this stretches. So if it's off a bit, that's fine. Now I'll show you with the E-wrap, since the E-wrap does look a little different. Because this was your U-stitch. This is the E-wrap. You can still kind of see the V shapes, but they're off a bit. If you stretch it, individual rows. Like that was a peg, that one, that one, that one, that one. So you just kind of stretch it out, lay it flat. You don't want it stretched or anything while you're counting this. So I know that's 1. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if I'm using an E-wrap stitch, every 5 pegs gives me 2 inches. So your product is going to be larger. You can see just by this how large. Now for those wanting to know how many rows for the body of your foot, which I am going to show you guys a way to get kind of past this. I just wanted to kind of go over it a little bit while people are catching up. Okay, we see these rows right here. Those V's stacked on top of each other. Each V is 1 stitch. So you sit your counter down, and I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So every 10 rows for this swatch right here equals 2 inches. Okay, now that you guys got that, it's like, okay, so how do I take that information? How do I use it for a sock? What you want to do, which I'm going to show you guys my little cheat sheet here. My handwriting is absolutely horrible. But for my foot is 9 inches long. And you want to measure it from you can take your foot and place it against like a wall or something. And then where the tip of your toe is, mark that and measure it. Because you want the full length of your foot. So my foot is 9 inches long. Now we have figured out how many pegs, how many rows it takes to make 1 inch. So it takes 5 rows to make 1 inch. I need my sock to be 9 inches long. That doesn't mean the body of my foot needs to be 45 inches long, because we got to take out space for the heel. And we got to think about the toe as well. So for that toe space, what I want to do is I'm going to take off 1.5 inches. That will kind of take out the heel space and the toe space. Most people, probably about 2 inches would probably work a little better. So that 9-inch length of my foot, if I take that 1.5 inch off, the body of my foot needs to be 7.5 inches long. So I know that, which this was for a different sock that I was doing. The other sock I'm doing, my rows, I'm only getting 4 rows for every inch. But you multiply the length of the body of your foot times how many rows it takes. And that gives you how many rows for the body of your sock. Now you guys know, this is a quick little lesson. I got a question here. Once I do all the decreases, do I knit 1 row of the narrow knit before I begin the increase, or immediately start? Very good question, Brenda. No, you are going to, actually, I will go ahead and get started on that now, since I have people starting to ask some questions. Okay, here we are. Now this last stitch, we have done our increases, we have done of our decreases, we've done our increases. You can see these loops right here. That was your wrap and turns. Now those will stretch out as you go, but that's what those are. If you're wondering what these weird looking little loops are, but the tension will release and they will stretch. So we are at peg 24. At this point, we are going to work in the round. The rest of this pattern is in the round 100%. So now, this peg, and this peg, peg 24, peg 1, peg 2, peg 11, 12, and 13, whatever stitch you are using for the rest of your sock, for this row and the next row, you want to do a flat stitch, because this is where that edge of that heel is. That's where this heel part is going to meet going in the round. So this is the most important part to help avoid those heel holes. Go ahead, take one over, then take the second. I want to tighten that up pretty good. and then do the next one as a flat stitch. Now the rest of these, I'm just going to do my normal stitch, which I'm using the U-stitch. I've come to a peg that is marked. Flip that over. I want to make sure the stitch marker is on the opposite side of this yarn because we don't want to accidentally get it twisted around and keep it, because then you could have a very unpleasant looking spot on your project. And the stitch markers, I've never had an issue with the stitch markers leaving in any kind of marks in the pattern, so don't worry about having the stitch markers holding out stitches. Okay, so there's that. Alright, peg 11, flat stitch, peg 12, take that first stitch over, take that second stitch over, and then peg 13, that one was flat stitch from the previous one, so you can see the tension was tight on that. And then you go in the round, and I got a question here. I missed the heel. What is wrap and turn? Alright, Sandra, a wrap and turn is when you wrap around the front of the peg and you turn to go in the opposite direction. So it's very, I'm going in this direction now, so if I was to wrap and turn, I would wrap around the front of the peg and turn my working yarn to go in the opposite direction. Alright, but I'm going to go ahead and work another round. Any other, and if you've asked a question and I haven't answered it, I may have missed it, so you're okay to repost it. If it is questions about the beginning of the project, there is a replay, so as soon as this video is over, you can re-watch it. Okay, here I am, peg 24, peg 1 and peg 2. I'm going to flat stitch them this time as well. So flat stitch, and flat stitch. Go back to my normal stitch. After this, you're just going to do your normal stitch. But I'll go ahead and get past peg 13 because that's going to be the last of it. And you can see, once your stitch marker is down there, it's going to stay. You don't have to worry about it getting caught up. I haven't had any issues with them getting caught up. So I think you guys will be fine. You guys got this. All right. Peg 11, 12, 13. That's the other side of the heel. And yes, those are very, very, very tight stitches. No. At this point, you just work in the round completely. Just keep working around and around and around until it is the length you want it to be. What I do, for me, most of the socks I make with this pattern, this style of, a number 5 or 6 weight yarn using the U-stitch, I typically end up doing somewhere between 30 and 45 rows to get the size that I'm looking for. For my foot, it's 30 rows. If that gives you kind of an idea. I wear a 7.5 shoe. And then when you get to, after that first row, now when you get to these, the first time back around, you can see those are going to be very, very tight. That's just where you've done that flat stitch. And as you keep going, the way you know how many rows you've done, if you're not using a row counter, is this is marking the row before you started. So we've got 1 bar here, so that's 1 row. And then there's the stitch on the peg. So that's 2 rows that you've done. I like to mark every 10 rows or every 5 rows. That's completely up to you. Let me see. I've got a couple questions here. Does the first time going around count as row 1? Yes, it does. I count time going around where I'm picking up the last increases from peg 1 and 12. I do count those as I count that as my first row, because I'm crossing across. The reason I do that is because I'm going across the front part of the loom and I'm not working strictly on the back anymore, if that makes any sense. This is what I got going on right now. But yes, that was a very good question, Jean. Oh, I know something I can show you guys while you're working. So how many of you are interested in trying a sock and changing some collars? At this point, I'm just working in the round. So while you guys are working, I'm going to show you another sock I've been working on. Let me find the sock itself. I showed you in the first video, but I know a lot of you weren't able to catch the first video. And it might help if I can find the yarn I gotta use for it. My cat's taken off with the yarn. Okay, I'm just gonna grab a separate yarn just so I can show you guys how to change. No, here it is, yay! Sorry guys, my cat has been going through all of my stuff as I've been trying to set it up. Well, one of the cats. Awesome, okay Cindy. Okay. This is this sock right here. This one's been washed, and this is a huge sock, but if you have if your feet swell and you have very large feet, this is a really nice dense house sock. As you can see for this one, I changed color for the cuff, the heel, and the toe. So what I'm going to do is brain moment, and I worked ahead and forgot to show you the color change here, but it is in the video. I'm sorry guys, it is in the individual video that will be released just of this sock. So here I am. It is time to do our first decrease. I've had some, looks like I had a rubber band break, so I'm going to fix that. See, if you use the little rubber bands as your peg markers, sometimes you'll have them break. It just happens. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to pop that off. Put this on. And pop that stitch back on. Now this one I'm using the E-wrap for. And I can push these all down. And I will go ahead and start the heel with a color change in E-wrap while people are asking questions. Okay. There we go. This is how thick this yarn is. It's standing up completely by itself. Alright, so you are ready to do your heel and you want to change and do a different color for your heel. Cut your working yarn just a few inches and leave that. One thing that is nice, at least if you do a color change, is I leave some yarn out, because then if I do end up with a little hole, I can stitch it closed. So I'm just going to put my working yarn down in there, and this is my first wrap and turn. And I'm doing an E-wrap. So, actually, sorry guys, I gotta try to think about which way I do this. Okay. For this one, I'm actually going to loop it like this. Put your loop, this is your first wrap and turn, right here. That's peg 1. This one has an anchor peg, so there's peg 1, here's peg 24. For just one stitch, I'm going, see how that's wrapped? I'm holding both of these strands together, I'm holding it in front, and I'm going to knit off. Now your working yarn from the first one's back here, so that's loose. You're going to want to tighten that up, and you can tighten this up even more later. So that yarn gets added. This one is in E-wrap, so I'll work a few of this. All right. And I am E-wrapping, which the E-wrap, the reason it is called an E-wrap is because it kind of resembles like a cursive E in a way, the way you're wrapping it. That's what I've been told. It's honestly, it is actually called a twisted knit stitch. If you look at it, you will see one bar is kind of longer. You don't have those perfect little V's like you do with the other knit stitches, U-stitch, flat stitch. This one has kind of like one that's a little longer. And that's because essentially you've made a knit stitch, but it has twisted. Okay, so I've E-wrapped to this other side. This is peg 12. Peg 13, I'm not going to E-wrap. I'm going to flat stitch that one. And then I'm going to do my wrap and turn for peg 12. I wrap around the front and then turn so the yarn is going in the opposite direction. Again, that peg, I will flat stitch. That tightens that up. And let me show you with, here is the finished one. This one's with a green heel. I did the collars opposite. I just thought that'd be cute. But look, this is the tightest part in this whole thing because everything else is an E-wrap stitch, which is a lot looser stitch. So these flat stitches right in front of that gives a very nice heel. I honestly liked it a lot better than I thought. I really wasn't sure how it would turn out. Okay, so we flat stitch that. We will E-wrap back. Let me check my timing here, guys. Ooh, okay. I'm going to spend just a few more minutes on the heel, and then I'm going to skip to the toe. And how to check your measuring before you start your toe. Okay, on this side, this was my first peg. This one has 2 stitches in it. We are going to treat those both as one. So E-wrap, peg 23, peg 24. Guys, I'm sorry. I said that backwards. We're going to treat both of these as one, but this is our next wrap and turn. So this one needs to be a flat stitch. Wrap around the front, turn to go in the opposite way. Then we're going to flat stitch it again. And then you go directly into your E-wrap, which you can E-wrap all the way to the other side. Okay, this is going to be our next wrap and turn. So I will flat stitch that one. And then wrap around the front, turn the yarn to go back in the opposite direction, flat stitch again. And then I would knit all those off, bottom loops over the top, and then I could wrap all the way to the other side. That is how you do the collar change for the heel. When you get to your final increase and you want to change collar back again, I cut my yarn and add a new collar before I do that first round where I have peg 1 and peg 12 still have the double on them and everything else is just single. I will add my new yarn in and do that first round in that new collar, since that is my first row of the body. Which the video for this one specifically will go over that in a lot more detail, guys. I'm sorry. All right. Let's get back to this one. Keep working and working and working in the round until it gets as long as you think. Now, I'm going to go, I got to show you guys something. This is the only way I can show you, and it looks ridiculous. But this is how I measure my socks when I'm doing socks like this, because gauging isn't a huge thing, because there isn't a big difference in the yarn after you wash it And if you've made a few of them, you kind of get the hang of how many stitches your foot needs, how many rows your foot needs, how many rows your husband's foot needs, your wife's, your girlfriend's, whatever. Okay. This looks funny, guys. You take, see if I can get this even in the shot. You take the loom, put your foot in it, and see how it fits. See where my cuff is. I've got my pull string, so I can tie that all up. And what you want is, right here is my big toe. These are some socks I made a long, long time ago. Starting to look rough. That big knot right here, I want my sock to go up to just a few inches, like 1.5 inches, maybe 2 inches before my toe. Because this is still stretched out, and it's going to shrink down. Like if you push it forward, you kind of get an idea that this would shrink down to be up to about here. So I have my final few rows and then my cast off. Actually, this sock is a pretty good example because when I pull this up like this, you can see it matches right here where I changed for the toe on this sock. While my foot's in the sock. Do you guys have any questions? Okay, I came late, couldn't find the links, so just confused. I've never done the heel like this. Sandra, you can watch the replay. Yeah, it's different. I like the wrap and turn heel. It seems to work about the best for me. But as you guys learn socks, you're going to find your favorite ways to do them. I honestly prefer toe up unless I'm doing house socks. If I'm doing house socks, they're going to be cuffed down every time. But see, so, and I can measure it, and this actually works really good trying to measure it this way, because if you have very large feet, like if your feet swell, diabetic, stuff like that, it will stretch out more this way, so you can see exactly how far it's going to come up, because if it stretched more, it would go down farther. If that makes sense, guys. And that way you can make sure you like how it's feeling here, here, and here on your foot. All right. So, oh wow, guys, that was completely unintentional, and I am so sorry. So sorry. I gotta figure out a better display for this. Okay, Lynn, that's how I measure the length of socks when I needle knit. Yes, Lynn, that is. I actually know a woman, and a partner guild to mine, and she has a tattoo on her foot. And that's how she measures when she needle knits her socks. She knows that once it goes to a certain point, that's when she starts her heel. It goes to a certain point, that's when she does her cuff. Get all the stuff off there. But yes, a lot of people, that's kind of a lot of people who needle knit, that is how they will measure their socks. But even with needle knitting doing that, if you haven't washed the swatch, if you haven't swatched and washed it, you can still end up with the fibers relaxing so much that the sock is, I've had socks end up being like 2 sizes too big for me just because I didn't wash the swatch before I went with the measurements I was getting. Let me see, I have bunions, I need to increase. Okay, you want to increase by the toes? Okay, if you have bunions and you don't want it tight on your toes, where I had it measured up, just make a couple more rows. The stitch I'm doing for the toe, it's actually, you're not shaping the toe like how you do the heel. The toe's not going to be getting tight like that. All right. Now, okay, so those of you kind of working along, you might want to pause for just a moment, kind of watch what I'm doing, because at this point, for this sock right here, I did my decrease, I did my increase. When I had 2 stitches left on peg 1 and 12, I started working in the round. Every 10 pegs, every 10 rows I marked so that I knew I was going to get all of them, well, all of them. So I knew I was going to get both socks to match. I'm going to use what is called a flat top bind off or cast off. It is one of my favorite cast offs for a hat because all it is doing is you're doing a pull string closure with a lot of the bulk taken out. For those of you, if you are new and you don't know what a pull string closure is, you would take your working yarn, wrap it around your loom, like once, let me see, pull string, actually no, you'd wrap it around your loom around one time, cut, then you would take and pull the yarn through every single stitch, pop it off, pull it closed. I'll be showing in more detail in a few minutes. But what we want to do is we want to take some of this bulk out of the sock. So we are going to take and decrease every 3 pegs. So peg 3, I'm sorry, we're going to decrease, oh my word. Alright guys, sorry for the break. Someone decided to call in while I was doing a video. So, okay guys, are you ready? I'm going to show you how to do your toe. We are going to decrease every 4 stitches. Now this is different. We're not doing it the same way. We're not doing a wrap and turn. What I'm going to do is you're going to use your main stitch. So, knit 2. So 1, 2, 3, 4. You want to take the stitch from peg 4, remove it, put it on peg 3. Then I'm just going to take and knit both of those over. You don't have to have your tension super tight or anything for this part. Working yarn goes behind the empty peg. So I'm going to go ahead and work 2 of the pegs. So 1, 2, 3, peg 4. And put that on the peg. And knit both of them off. So there's the first one. There is the second one. We're going to be left with sets of 3. So I'll knit 2. And then 1, 2, 3, 4. Bring number 4 over. Which if you're using an E-wrap stitch and you find it easier to untwist the stitch, I'll show you with my next one. If you find it easier to twist the stitch in one way or the other to get it on that peg, that's fine. Just try to do the same with each one. Okay, so behind. So we'll go ahead and work 2 pegs. So I take this stitch off. I can move the stitch just as it is and add it like that. Or I can bring it around front and kind of twist it and add it. It honestly does not matter. Just be consistent. Whichever way is easier for you, do that and just use the same method all the way around. So I knit 2. Sorry guys, the animals are walking in and out of the garage. So that's what the creaky door is. Okay, both of those are twisted together, so I'm going to take them both off at one time. Just be careful taking both stitches off at a time. If the tension's too tight, you could break a peg. And I'm not one to speak poorly of loom companies because I love looms and I'm happy that they're out there. With this specific loom, I don't know if you can hear it, that plastic, it's a recycled plastic, I believe, and it tends to be a little more brittle. So I'm more likely to break pegs on this loom than a lot of my other looms just because of the materials they are Okay, so there is my first row of decrease. Now I'm going to go around and just work a normal row. And see, I'm putting my working yarn behind these empty pegs. So I'm going all the way around. And I'll show you, we're actually going to do one more decrease. And the only reason we're doing this is to take that bulkiness out of the toe. I don't know if any of you have ever made slippers where you just do a regular pull string for the toe, but that bulkiness can get a little frustrating. All right, we're back at our beginning. Now you can work the way I did and just do one at a time, but you can also go through. Now we are going to have the 3 pegs. We'll be taking peg 2 to peg 1. So 3, 4, 5. Peg 6 to peg 5. You see my tension's a little tighter doing it that way though. Because I haven't worked any of the stitches before it to loosen that up at all. But, see, I'm having a little tighter, little tougher time moving the stitches on this round. But again, guys, I knit tight. So as you can see, every other peg that has a stitch on it will have 2. We're going to go around and knit those off. Another issue I have with this loom is my yarn getting stuck in that. So I'm going to go ahead and push those down. What are your guys' favorite looms to make socks on? For house socks, the looms I'm using for this class are my absolute favorite. The Nifty Knitter is the one, kind of my go-to, but now that I've got the main one I've been using for this class with the purple, the KB loom, making the purple sock on it, that one I really like. I like how KB does their pegs where they are flat on the sides. I wrap tight and it can be difficult for me to get the stitch over the head of the peg. That is one beneficial thing to this loom, the way the pegs are. But my issue is I will wrap too tight and I will break these pegs. That is where a tensioner comes in handy, but a tensioner is really only good if you're using like an E-wrap stitch. And I went over tensioners and stuff in the first class. All right, so here we go. Every other peg now has a stitch on it. Sandra, I just got the KB Chunky Like You. Oh yes, I love these chunky looms. I really do. Like the material. Okay, listen, this is, if you guys can hear the sound difference. That's the sound of that plastic. I don't know if you guys can hear the difference over that, but over the years, I've come to be able to kind of look at the looms and assess how brittle the plastic's going to be, but that's years and years and years of breaking pegs and looms. So I got to the point where sometimes it's worth it to invest a little bit more money in something that's going to be more durable. But this is, and I love looms. Who all has noticed this? KB's looms are now coming with the peg number and the gauge on them. And that is fantastic. Cindy Wood does the same thing with theirs. They actually handwrite it on, but it's a family business. And that's so helpful because gauging is horrible. But Kristen, Good Knit Kisses, just did a live video. She has came out with a gauging tool. I don't have the information for it. If any of you guys know the information and want to post it in the comment section of this, fantastic. Because it is really, really neat, and it's a very smart and clever idea. But yes, there's that loom. All right, am I focusing in good? All right, it looks like it is. Okay. All right, guys. I'm going to go back to this cast off. I'm trying to take little breaks, and that way, if you guys are like me, you're looking at your loom working, and then I'm talking and I say something you want to see, so you look up and you might miss where you're at. But I'm also trying to keep this within the time period so you guys have plenty of time to get ready for whatever you're doing for your Super Bowl. All right. Working yarn is coming from here. This was our first stitch. So I'm wrapping the yarn around this loom. I'm actually wrapping it around like 2.5 times. The worst thing about this cast off is the amount of waste yarn that you do have with it. Okay, let me see. We've got a couple things here. KB is amazing. I love the hook you get too. I'm selling all of mine in hat loom. Oh yes, the hook is really cool. I have like their normal tool, and then let me see if I have where the rest of them are. Oh no, they actually put out KB has an ergonomic tool that's orange that they have, but for their they also put these ones out. I know it looks crazy. I feel like I'm Wolverine. Like these are my claws. How can I do it right? Yeah, I'm Wolverine now. Sorry guys. Okay. This goes kind of with their rotating double knit loom, but you can use them on long looms too. As long as just if this matches your peg spacing, you can use it. And this is actually, it's kind of a neat tool. I really need to play around with it more. There are so many different loom tools. Every company has their own. Oh, okay. To get the gauging tool free, you need to be a member of the Good Knit Kisses VIP. Otherwise, it will be coming out on Etsy in a month or two. Oh, thank you, Carol. All right, so let's unwrap that. So, for those of you who are familiar with your pull string cast off, and those of you who aren't, all that is, it doesn't matter. You can go from the bottom. I'm just used to pulling the yarn up that way. Or you can go and work this way. It doesn't matter. The point is, you get this string through this loop. So, I'm going to pull the string up through, get all that through. That's hooked on that string. Now, you can just kick it off the loom. I'm going to skip this one right here. Actually, I do want to make a note before I go any farther on that. If you're using a yarn, when you get to this point, you do not have to do this part with the yarn you are using for the sock. If you're concerned that the yarn is going to make the end like super, super bulky like this one does, or if you have a fiber that you're worried about it, like this right here, if you're worried about it just like matting up, or you're worried the yarn will break, that's fine. I suggest using like a cotton or something that's very durable. It doesn't even have, it can be a sock weight yarn as long as it's durable. And then you can use that for this cast off. Okay, so I did the first one. I'm skipping one. You pull that yarn all the way through, and then kick it off there. We're going to skip one, go to the next, and kick that off there. Kick it off. I'm skipping every other one. Now, I am back to my beginning. You can see, I think this looks pretty neat. This is what it looks like right now. Now, the concept behind the flat top bind off, I like showing you like this because to me, I think that's a better visual, is you're going to have the ones you took off, those ones are going to tighten up first, and then when you do all these ones, that's going to tighten up next. So you're actually going to have like two little circles tightened up on top of each other. When you'll be able to feel it as you do it. So I could go all the way over here to this one and pick it up, or I can pick up this one. I'm going to go over just because I like the fact that it makes a circle. Honestly, it doesn't make a big difference. I haven't noticed a difference either way. So now, and these ones, I'll go ahead and just leave these ones on here because you don't really have to pop the stitches off with each one. I'm still doing the same thing. I'm just running them through. I'm just not taking them off. And I've got one more. It's actually kind of pretty. It's like a snowflake or something. Okay. Now that every peg on a loom has the yarn through it, just kick all of those off. And then the scary part, everything is off the loom, and you got a sock, almost. Hopefully the video will show this pretty good. But if you watch, you're going to notice that outside edge is going to tighten up, and it's going to want to tighten that inside edge. But what you want to do, I put my loom tool in here and pull it to tighten it so that you have two circles that got to tighten up. So I take and I try to tighten it up like that. And again, make sure the yarn you're using to close this off, you want it to be strong. If you're tightening this up and this yarn breaks, it's not the end of the world, but you're going to wish it was. No, it's not the end of the world, but it is a hassle to fix. It can be very, very frustrating, and it can be difficult to fix. See, I've got that tightened up. Now, I want to make sure everything is super tightened up, and I want this string on the inside. So I take, and all right, here's where it's tightening up. I'm going to take this string, put it through that hole. And I'm just flipping the whole sock inside out. And I just want to bring this to the inside. So, and now, since I've got it tightened up pretty good, I want to go ahead and pull it tight. I take and kind of stretch it and just pull it in different directions. But just gotta make sure it's not too tight. I mean, you gotta make sure it's not so tight that you break it. Let me show you guys, see how the toe looks. Make sure all the strands are in. And that's how the toe looks. The toe, the yarn, it's a little thinner where we've decreased. We've taken a lot of that bulk out. And then where we did that cast off, it creates a very nice little toe. To take and I had a crochet hook. Oh, here we go. Now, you don't want to make a big knot. You don't want to make a big knot. See, I was able to tighten that up a little more because you don't want to feel it. So what I like to do is this is a different tool, but I take a crochet hook. You can actually take a tapestry needle if you want. I'm going to cut this. just so I don't have to mess with the rest of that yarn. You can use a tapestry needle. You just thread it, and then you just kind of sew it through. But I'll show you exactly how I do it, because right now there's no knot, no nothing keeping that. It's just pulled tight, and that's it. But you do want to lock it in. So I'm picking a stitch not too far from where the knot is, or the yarn's coming through. Pull it through. See, we have this loop. I want to take and pull that through that loop. That one tiny little loop, you have no idea how good that's going to hold that. At this point, I take, and I don't go by,